Hello, and welcome to SCG Global Spin, Austria Legal Update. Our host today is Alice Vandershee. Alice is a partner at Van Bentum and Culin, where she heads the Restructuring and Insolvency Practice Group. She is often appointed as administrator in moratoriums and as receiver in bankruptcies, and she is licensed to practice law in both the Netherlands and Germany. Additionally, she is currently on the board of directors of SCG Legal and a member of the Council of Insol Europe. Joining Alice today is Dr. Theresia Gahammer. Theresia is an attorney at law at Doralt, Zeist, and Shockley, where she focuses her practice on M&A and real estate. She earned her doctorate of law in 2018 at the Vienna University of Economics and Business Administration and is fluent in German, English, and French.
Hi, Theresia. How are you?
Hi, Alice. Thank you. I'm fine. I hope you are fine as well.
Yes, I see you're in the office.
Yeah, so big change. I was in home office before, so I came back to the office yesterday because we had a suspected corona case around the office. So everyone got tested. People still had to stay at home to check whether they had symptoms, but we're all negative. We're all good. So quite happy to be back again, even if that sounds weird, but yeah, I realized that I might like my job actually.
Yeah. It doesn't sound weird to me at all. I mean, after the last few months, having stayed at home for so long, you really appreciate, or at least I really appreciate the fact that you can sit in the office and have a coffee with a colleague and talk about a case rather than picking up the phone all the time. What were your experiences in that regard?
For us, so the lockdown for lawyers was not really complete. So we kind of self-inflicted lockdown to ourselves, but legally we were still allowed to go to work because there was a list of exceptions where lockdown did not apply, like supermarkets, pharmacies, and also lawyers, because I think it's still important that we keep our daily contact or face-to-face contact with clients. So we were still allowed to go to work. But myself, I stayed at home for, let's say, 1 month. And then we kind of slowly came back to work altogether. So for me, lockdown was not as hard as for other people. How was that? How was that for you?
Well, you know, the Netherlands, we have an intelligent lockdown. At least that's what the government says. And that means that the people that can work from home should work from home. But of course, exceptions are all around. And it was also for us the same. We could go to the office, but in effect, our management told us to work from home if that was possible. And so we did. I stayed at home almost 2 months. And my experience with working from home was, it is something that I'm certain our firm will have to comply, will have to do more of in the future, because a lot of people really like it. I mean, if you have to combine a family and the work or have a long commute, then it might be advantageous to work 1 or 2 days from home. But for myself, I have quite a big team of primarily younger associates. And I think in that sense, it is really difficult to instruct them and to keep them learning when you're away and always have to pick up the phone to tell them how to do it. It's much, the impact of what you're telling them is much harsher when you're telling that on the phone or in Zoom, rather than being able to instruct that while discussing it over a cup of coffee here.
Yeah.
And also, well, I think one of the important takeaways of the last few months is that the job that we have is in close connection with the courts, and as the courts in part shut down their task or had much fewer cases to be tried, or only the very important ones. You really acknowledge how that framework is quite sensitive to disruptions, and we now see quite a backlog that needs to be done. How's that in Austria?
Yeah, it's about the same. So we had an official court lockdown until the end of April, which was not very long. But still, yeah, that's actually, we recognize how much work we do in 1 month or 1.5 months. And now we have to keep up with things. So usually in summer, there's not so many court hearings, but now we have to catch up all the things we missed. So there's quite a lot of work to do.
And is there a change in the way the courts work? I mean, the judges and the courts are now doing their cases by Zoom or by having calls by Skype in order to get going. And so you see, and they are saying that they will include that in their package in the future. Is that the same in Austria?
Not really, only for your area, which is restructuring, they do that. But for all other court cases, we have to be there personally, and people wear masks. So the judge usually has a plastic shield, transparent in front of them. But we started going back to court as usual. So you arrive at court, they take your temperature to test if you have a fever. But then everything with masks, everyone keeps a distance, but business as usual, I would say.
Okay.
So no technological progress due to that.
Well,
I'm sorry.
No. Well, I think that's one of the good things that might come out of this whole pandemic is that
yeah, definitely.
Some advantages or innovations that normally would be blocked at all. If you look at your economy, what is the situation in Austria? Is the economy very much hurt by the pandemic?
Not so much. So it depends on how things will turn out, actually, because at the moment, when COVID was diagnosed first, Austria took measures. And one of these measures was the so-called Kurzarbeit, which means short work, translated to English. This means that if a company doesn't have enough work to employ all the employees, you can send them to Kurzarbeit, and then they work part-time. So let's say between 10% and 90%, so that's really flexible. And then the state pays between 80% and 90% of their salary to the employee. So this took a huge burden from the companies because they didn't have to worry about. But still, I mean, there are some fields of activity where this doesn't work at all, or this doesn't apply, like the whole cultural or restaurants, tourism. So all that, I think, was really affected by COVID. But in the end, it will depend on how things turn out, if there will be another lockdown again or not. So for offices, I think it worked quite well. But of course, there are lots of kinds of businesses that are really affected by the whole situation.
Can you already see a rise in restructurings in Austria? Because the strange thing is that in the Netherlands, the amount of restructurings and insolvencies actually is going down, and everybody thinks that is due to the help the government has given us over the last few months. But is that a little bit the same in Austria?
I think the numbers are quite stable, but for me, since I work in real estate, I see a lot of restructuring proceedings because many tenants of shopping centers or other tenants can't pay the rent, and then they go bankrupt. So from my personal experience, I would say there's more restructuring, but I don't think that's an objective view. So no. In total, it's quite stable. Yeah, and also most certainly because of the help of the government.
Yes, well, that is something that that you will see, that I expect that will happen in the next few months, is that the government on the one hand is helping us shielding companies from insolvency on the one hand, but as soon as that help drops off, there might be an uptick when it comes to restructuring. And of course, I think there will be some changes due to the pandemic in the way the economy is organized. Personally, I see that a lot of clients are having, are shedding their operations that are in China, where they have too long transport times, and also they are and the transport times were disrupted due to the fact that there was a lockdown in China. What about your clients? I mean, you say real estate is affected. Other clients of the firms, do you have a feedback on them?
So other client, I think it's rather like it was like a break, but now life goes on. So I can't really say there's a general trend towards that direction. I mean, for real estate, the tenants were affected, but the owners were not really affected. So real estate is still stable. I think real estate is like one of the most stable things you can do as a lawyer, because it will always work. And I wouldn't say that it has a long-term effect. Like, it really depends on how things will keep going in autumn, if we have a second lockdown or not. But at the moment, it was like everyone waited for things to change, for prices to drop, but prices didn't really drop. So now we just do business as usual. We have somehow adapted to new forms of communication. We have accepted that working from remote does not mean that you don't do anything at home and you're on holiday. I think that was the biggest fear of many people, that their employees were sitting at home or sitting in the swimming pool, not doing anything. So that was the worst fear of all employers, that they would have to check. And but in the end, I don't think that it has turned out this way.
No. And that's the same in the Netherlands. I mean, we as an employer were quite reluctant to let everybody work from home. I mean, we said, okay, it's okay, but then it needs to be restricted. And but now we've seen that when everybody works from home, it quite works. Our turnover is just the same, or as we have decided that it should be. So I think that has not affected our work as much. If you were a US lawyer, where would you look for? Do you think that this pandemic offers also some opportunities in your country?
Well, if you sell masks and medical products, but no. But also, to be honest, maybe it has offered some opportunities with regard to technologies. People are ready to change something. So if you can come up with new ideas, technological issues, new programs to connect people are, I think, less afraid to try something new.
Yeah.
Which people have always been in my country. Like in Austria, usually something new, it's always people are very afraid of trying out. So I think the pandemic has changed the position of people toward new things.
Yeah. Well, the Netherlands is a little bit different. I mean, we are not people that are in the mountains or in mountainous or in the middle of a continent. I mean, we are, of course, one of our biggest issues or assets is the trade. We have been a trading country for many centuries, and in that respect, we are already open to change because a lot of cultural influences are already there. And what we see now is quite an influx of investments at this time already from other parts in the world, where people and companies feel that there might be a possibility of picking up companies cheap now that they are facing troubles and are a little bit in distress. So when it comes to normal M&A transactions are lower, but distressed M&A transactions are absolutely on the rise, because you see that a lot of people that have money in the bank are now looking for opportunities in this pandemic. That is not true for all the economy. If you look at some parts, for instance, if you are in the events business, or if you are in the leisure or hotel business, well, then you're in trouble. And we foresee in the Netherlands that there will be a shakeout in that respect in the next few months, and that will also depend a bit on whether there's a second lockdown. I think right now our numbers are on the rise. When everybody comes back from holiday, I don't know what will happen exactly, but I'm not very optimistic that the next few months will go smoothly. But how's that in Austria? What do you think?
Because in Austria, numbers are already on the rise again. So we have around 150 new infections a day, which is a lot compared to before. So they say it's the same amount of new infections that we had around Easter. So because people, as you say, we're a mountain country, we don't have access to the beach. People can't stay here in summer. I mean, you could go somewhere to the Salzkammergut or to a lake, but if you're unlucky, then you have 2 weeks of bad weather and rain. So what people usually do, they go to Italy, to go to Croatia, Greece, and we will see how this turns out. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if we talk about the economy a little bit more, what do you think or what was the biggest change for your clients in the last few months, except from the home working? Were there other innovations that you in your firm introduced?
Well, we use the same communication tools we did before, maybe a little bit more Zoom and on all these programs. So we're lucky that we just invested in a new hi-fi system just before COVID. So we had this whole hi-fi thing already in December and January. So all our meeting rooms are equipped with this stuff. So we're quite prepared for this, luckily. And we use these programs, but I mean, I think it's not more difficult to keep in touch with clients. Your clients will always be your clients. They trust you or they don't trust you. So it doesn't matter whether you see them in person or whether you talk to them via Skype or Zoom. On the other hand, it's more difficult to find new clients, because where will you find them, right? There are no events. You can't meet the person. How can the person trust in you if they don't see you personally? So that if there's a second lockdown, maybe this will be a challenge for many lawyers.
Yes. Well, we have the same feeling. We are now broadcasting quite a lot of podcasts and also having webinars in order to inform our clients proactively about new developments. And where we would otherwise organize seminars, it is now all webinars. And we get experienced in that. So it brings something good as well.
Yeah. And it brings home office. You can do the laundry, still work. Maybe that's a positive aspect, because I just moved to a new apartment where I have a garden. So that's really relaxing to be at home and during lunch break. But on the other hand, you don't structure your day that well. You don't do any more sports. You visit the fridge too often. You drink too much coffee. You start with an aperitif too early. And then, I think I'm still more efficient here at the office.
Yes, the same is true for me. Thank you very much, Theresia. I hope to see you soon in person. And thank you for this conversation. I really enjoyed it. And I hope that, see you soon.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye. I had a great time, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
And that concludes our recording. Thank you for joining us today. You can find this and many other episodes at scgglobalspin.com.